This is J.G. Hertzler, General Martok on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and you are listening to the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant. It's the Trek Geeks podcast with Bill Smith and Dan Davidson.
Coming to you from Podfleet Command, it's the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant. Welcome, everyone, to Trek Geeks, your independent Star Trek podcast. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith, and for once, I'm actually introducing myself. How novel. We're excited to have you here. This is episode 131, and we're bringing back a fan favorite tonight. Of course, I could be talking about the infamous See It or Skip It, but instead, I mean my illustrious co-host. He is heralded from sea to shining sea as the star of Discovering Trek, a Star Trek Discovery podcast. He's the lovable and irascible Dan Davidson. Dan, growl for me. Show me you still care.
I love it when you talk like that. It is great to be here. Thank you for a very nice introduction. And I can say, I hope I sound better than I did on the last episode of Discovering Trek when I obviously had some mic problems. So I've gone out, I've gotten a new mic, I've got a Yeti, top of the line. Hopefully I sound half as good as you do, Bill, and I think it'll be okay.
You do sound half as good as I do, but I think that's largely just genetics, buddy.
Okay, so this week on...
Ba-doom boom.
Exactly. Thank you. Yo, I'm excited to be here because, as you alluded to just a second ago, we're bringing back a fan favorite this week, and we're getting back into the swing of things with DS9 over the course of last week and this week, and I'm very excited about what we've got going on this week.
That's right. We're going to do one of our patented and trademarked, of course, it's neither of those things, See It or Skip It episodes. And Dan, we're focusing on the second season of our favorite Star Trek.
Yes, Deep Space Nine, Season 2. We have talked in the past about how the spin-off series sometimes took a little bit of time to get the feet on the ground running, so to speak. And I used to think the same of Deep Space Nine Season 2, but with my rewatch recently, I think some people are going to be very happy with the results that we have with tonight's spreadsheet of yes or no.
I think they'll be quite startled, quite frankly, especially looking at some of our other averages. If you compare this to TNG Season 2, well, maybe we'll do that later. Dan, speaking of comparisons and comments and all kinds of stuff, why don't you tell the good folks playing the home edition how they can give us their thoughts on Season 2 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine and beyond?
Well, I'd be beyond. I like that. I'd be very happy to do that, Bill. It's easier than ever to get in touch with us. You can head right on over to trekgeeks.com/contact. And there you can find a variety of ways to send us your thoughts. And we want to hear from you. So you can leave us a voicemail. You can Skype chat us. You can even fill out the contact form and leave us a message about anything that may be on your Star Trek mind. Plus, don't forget, you can click the big blue button on the right side of the website and even leave us a voice message using SpeakPipe, which is very handy. And, we talk about it every single week, Bill. We love Camp Kittimer, and we want everybody listening to go on over and join our official Facebook group. It's great things happening over there every single week, like Star Trek talk and pictures and contests. Trek Tuesday is a huge thing over at Camp Kittimer. Plus, as an added bonus, you're going to get early access to these here episodes of the Trek Geeks podcast. So to join the group, just head on over to facebook.com/groups/Camp Kittimer. And any one of our wonderful admins, Heather, Jackie, or Dan, will let you right in to join in on all the fun. But please remember that any comments or messages that you leave us in any of these places may be used in a future episode. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you, Dan. That was fantastic. You know, Dan, We're very excited also this week, speaking of fan favorites, we bring a fan favorite back to Trek Geeks. He is, of course, the special guest geek for this episode, and he's here, Dan, for the full hour.
Oh, I think it might be even more than the full hour, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We talk about him every week. He loves my Farkisms. I know he just waits on bated breath every single week. It is the man himself. It is Mr. Andy Fark from 5-Year Mission. And Andy, welcome back to the show, man. We are thrilled to have you as our guest geek this week.
Boys, you flatter me and also slightly scare me. So I'm glad to be back.
It's been a long time since we've had you on. Of course, you guys have been doing some great things. We've been talking up year 4 on Trek Geeks for quite a while. You guys are pretty close to letting that out of the bag. So where are you at with it right now?
We have one more track to record, and it's going to be the biggest pain in the butt ever for the track, The Day of the Dove. And everything else is mixed, ready to go. And April 27th. It's going to be in everyone's hot little hands. And if you donated to the Kickstarter, you'll have it even before April 27th. So,
that's so exciting!
Beautiful. Hey, Andy, let me ask you a quick question about Day of the Dove. You going to have a Piotr reference in that song?
No.
Oh, I'll buy it anyway.
I know you would. Even if there wasn't one, if there was one, you were going to buy it either way. So don't try to act like you weren't gonna.
That's right.
All right. I'm sorry. I'll buy 2 now, okay?
Perfect.
maybe 3 because you're a big jerk. But yeah. So honestly, Fark, Fark, you're joining us tonight for Deep Space Nine. Obviously, it's Dan's and my favorite Trek. Where does it rank with you? Obviously, you wear a lot of TOS garb in your gigs with 5-Year Mission. Are you a huge DS9 fan?
DS9 is my favorite series, actually.
Nice.
But don't tell any of our fans that. TOS, everybody. That's my favorite. But it's really deep. It's actually Deep Space Nine.
Did you know it was your favorite while you were watching it, or did it take some time afterwards and it sort of the light bulb went off over your head?
Yeah, basically as soon as I hit probably season 5, I was like, yeah, this is the best. There's no comparison to this. I mean, this is by far my favorite series, and I hated trying to admit it to myself just because of how iconic Next Generation was, and of course I'm in 5-Year Mission and we sing about TOS and everything. So I had to come to grips with, is this really my favorite series? Yes, it is.
Well, you're with the perfect support group tonight, and fret not. You are among fellow Deep Space Nine devotees, so we're gonna have a fun time tonight. I'm excited. I'm pretty sure Dan's excited too, even though there could be a lawsuit by the end of the night. You never know.
Well, you think
I was going to ask.
These nipples.
I was going to make sure that I ask before I sing anything, but chances are I won't even bother. So I think we're going to be lawsuit free by the end of the evening.
No means no, Dan.
Maybe. No. Gotta keep remembering that.
The best part of breaking up segments, and I'm not just saying this because Fark is part of the recording tonight, is the fact that there's more 5-Year Mission in between each segment of the show. But that's just me, Dan.
Kick ass, whichever one. It's okay. You know what? It doesn't matter because I can't disagree with you because it is pretty awesome. It's listening to 5-Year Mission in between segments is better than listening to ourselves. So I can't fault you there, my good man.
Fark, I'm going to be sure that I use a bumper that uses a lot of drums. So when you actually listen to this, when you're pumping iron at the gym, you're going to hear a lot of yourself in that way too. So yay!
It's basically just masturbation for me at this point.
Outstanding. What better way to segue into Star Trek Deep Space Nine?
No, that would be Voyager.
That would be Voyager. That's right.
Pure Star Trek masturbation.
Oh, my lord! I don't know how we're going to make it through the rest of this hour, but we're going to soldier on. So obviously, you guys know how this works, but let me remind the folks at home what we do with See It or Skip It, since it's been a little while since we've done one. Dan and I have gone through and rated all of the episodes of season 2 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and we're going to decide whether it was a See It or a Skip It and tell you why. Now, I can't speak for Dan, but as far as me, I can tell you there's absolutely no rhyme or reason to why I would watch or skip a given episode. Sometimes it's because it fits in the larger story, and with Deep Space Nine, that's probably more true than ever. Or other times it may be just because I really don't dig it. And I can guarantee both of you boys that there's at least one meh in this season of Star Trek.
That is your trademark, bud. And yeah, I agree with you. There's no real rhyme or reason. If it's an episode that I just don't like, I'm going to give it a skip it. I mean, it doesn't have to have a specific reason when you're looking at the overall arc of the entire series of Deep Space Nine. If it's a good episode, I'm going to give it a see it because there are things I like about it. But if it's just, you have your meh trademark, and I usually have there's one episode per season that I just have no recollection of whatsoever. Chances are there might be one of those in season 2 of Deep Space Nine.
You're honest, and we appreciate that. And of course, Fark, you're welcome to chime in with whether you would see or skip a given episode. If you want to wade into that territory, and if not, believe me, we totally get it because Dan and I are boring, and we might put you to sleep.
What? I'm sorry. I stopped paying attention after the whole Bing Bong thing.
That was well done. Well played, sir. Well played. Well, with that, we will let's get started. Fark is going to shepherd us through the list of episodes, and you can decide who goes when, Fark, and it's all in your capable hands, good sir.
All right. Let's kick it off. Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 1, The Homecoming. Quark gives Kira a Bajoran earring he claims was sent as a message from a Cardassian mining planet. Dan, we'll go ahead and start with you, good sir, for no good reason.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being able to go first. Thank you so much. You know what? This is Season 2, Episode 1. I have to give it a see it. However, I have a new appreciation for the Circle Trilogy. I used to really not like it, but thanks to my pals over at Heroes and Icons TV, I've been able to rewatch this recently, and I really have a better appreciation for it. And I also got to thank Jim Morehouse, because I know it's one of his favorite arcs in all of Star Trek history. And of course, Frank Langella is just amazing in all 3 of these, but I just love seeing him in Deep Space Nine. So I gave it a see it.
Yeah, I have to admit I did as well. I hate to let the cat out of the bag, but we got our first agreement of the episode, which really feels kind of underwhelming. I mean, it's really, if you think about the first 3-parter in Star Trek history for all intents and purposes. And then, Dan, like you said, Frank Langella. I mean, the guy doesn't even take an on-screen credit for this episode, which he should have because he's fantastic in the whole thing. And then, of course, there's Richard Beamer from West Side Story as Lee Nallis. I think this is a great start to a wonderful 3-part arc.
Yeah, and I totally agree.
Disagree.
I definitely gave this one a see it myself. Because I mean, it's
very nice.
It's a very unofficial, like you said, 3-parter, and I mean, how are you going to skip one part of a 3-parter? Honestly,
yeah,
you can't.
Okay.
We got anything? I didn't know if you had anything else to chime in. Moving on.
Well, here's what I would say. I could have saved this until the end of the 3 episodes that this arc takes place. But I got to say, at first, when these were on and the first times that I watched and rewatched the series, I wasn't really interested in the whole Bajoran way of life and politics and religion thing. It really wasn't something that I was like, oh, man, I really think this is great stuff. But now that I have that better understanding and better appreciation for the Circle, it's much different for me than it was in the past.
I will tell you that I do have the results of the Camp Kittimer survey that was done by Debbie Moltisanti over in Camp Kittimer, and we're grateful to her for doing that every time we do a See It or Skip It now. Debbie, thank you so much. I'm going to go through all 3 episodes once we've completed the episode arc, if that's good with you guys.
Sure.
Good for me. All right, up next, episode 2, The Circle. The Circle attempts to topple the Bajoran government, but there is more to the situation than meets the eye. Bill, we'll go ahead and start with you since I gave Dan the first shot.
Well, thank you. I think this is also definitely a see it. I hate to show my hand early, but this may be a trend for this arc. I think this is a fantastic middle act. It's got a lot of tension. It's got a lot of drama. And I think that the way Sisko is written in this particular episode is fantastic. So for me, it's absolute see it.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, Bill. It is a see it for me. And like I said just a minute ago, one of the reasons that I like this episode is this second part of the trilogy continues along very nicely and gives us a real great insight into those Bajoran politics and religion that I just spoke of a minute ago. Even though they can be as repulsive as ours at times when we're watching Deep Space Nine, it was really interesting to watch for me. So I gave it a see it as well.
Yeah, that's a definite see it for me on this one too. Because I mean, we got a lot of intrigue, we got a lot of a cool cliffhanger, and nice little reveals. And plus, I mean, we're getting to know Kira even more and more. So, and that's always a plus in my book.
I absolutely agree. I think that the Kira aspect of this story is probably one of my favorites because she really gets put on some uncertain turf, after only one season. And you, at this point, you don't know what's going to happen with her character. You assume she's going to be back on Deep Space Nine, but at this point, you just don't know.
Exactly. All right, moving on to, we just blazed through those first two, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, episode 3, The Siege. Sisko and Lee Nallis help stop Deep Space Nine from being commandeered by the Bajorans, while Kira and Dax try to put an end to the Circle by presenting evidence that Minister Jaro is being backed by the Cardassians. Dan, back to you.
Yeah, why not wrap up the 3-part arc with yet another see it? So 3 for 3 so far in season 2. It is rare that an arc story has a see it and a skip it. It has happened in TNG. We saw that happen with Bill and I. But I can't throw this one to the wolves. It's a see it, but I can't say I didn't love this episode. There were a lot of parts that I liked to it. I liked how Kira confronted Jaro at the monastery. I thought that was great. And I like that Colonel Day, while trying to assassinate Sisko on the station, is just incompetent. And like a poor marksman, he keeps missing the target. So I gave that a see it, yes.
Nice reference. I like that.
You're welcome.
I don't think this is as strong an episode as the first two, but I think it absolutely has some great moments, like you said, Dan. I'm going to say that Steven Weber is part of this story, and he's terrible in everything he's in. I don't like anything Steven Weber has ever been in. But I think you have to finish this story out because I think it comes to a satisfying conclusion. So for me, The Siege is an absolute see it.
Maybe he should have winged it.
Oh,
that was terrible.
Sorry. Sorry.
I definitely gave this a see it too, even though I don't want to agree with Dan after that whole pun. But yeah, definitely see it because I mean it wraps up the whole 3-part arc, first few episodes of season 2. Again, more great character development, more insight into what the hell the Bajorans are doing. So I mean, yeah, it's a definite see it.
Now, as far as Camp Khitomer, I think that this is interesting. So in breaking down the 3 episodes, the Homecoming has an 86% see it, which I think that's great. Mm-hmm. If I go to the Circle, it's got a 91% see it,
wow,
which is pretty fantastic. And then the Siege, the last part, drops back down again to 87%, which I think is really kind of telling. I think it agrees with most of us. There's one verbatim that says excellent 3-parter. And I think that's absolutely true. But it's interesting to see how those votes fell percentage-wise over the 3 episodes.
That is kind of interesting that the middle episode would get the most see-its instead of, basically the meat is getting all the love, but the bread is just, meh.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, That's kind of like Empire is the best Star Wars movie, but yet I digress.
Precisely. See it. Oh, speaking of see it, let's move on to episode 4. Invasive procedures. I think I'm going to have one of those here pretty soon. A plasma storm leads to the evacuation of most of the station, but a Trill refugee has his own plans. Ooh. Bill, let's hear your thoughts.
That sounds very ominous, Fark. Thank you.
Right.
I really kind of like this episode, even though it's kind of on the verge of creating its own DS9 trope, and that is Dax is attacked and in trouble. You know, it happened in season 1 in the episode Dax, and then it happens again early on in season 2 in Invasive Procedures. But overall, I kind of like what this episode does and what it sets up for Dax, so I'm going to call this one a see it.
Yeah, I can agree with you there, Bill, about a couple of things you said. I gave it a see it, but it's one of those borderline see it's. I like the story, but I just found it way too convenient that the whole station just had to evacuate except, quote unquote, except for the senior staff. I found that a little bit too convenient for Varad and his plans on what he was planning to do. But I didn't dislike the episode too much. His manic smile was like really creepy. And like you said, it is a great Dax episode and sets up for a lot of stuff down the line. So I gave it a borderline see it. I guess I'll put it that way. What about you, Fark?
I thought it was a definite see it, mainly because, you know, we get a little more background on the Trill, and plus, I mean, I'm also a big fan of how the renegade Trill got on board. He basically had hired guns to help him, and I thought it was kind of like a weird like heist kind of thing going on. So you kind of had like a weird, like Ocean's 11 in space almost, except a little more of like a straightforward kind of heist rather than, you know, ooh, we're going to be sneaky. So yeah, I think that was a definite see it.
One of the fun things in this episode, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves, this is the one where Tim Russ plays a Klingon, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and so we get a little more Tim Russ before we get to Fark's favorite, Voyager. Dan Kinnemer doesn't like this episode as much. This one, for all the campers, was a 64% see it. So still a majority, but I think very interesting.
I think it's interesting that I think for the first time in our see it or skip it history, we're 4 for 4 for the first episode of a season. First 4 episodes of a season, I should say. That's pretty incredible. That's
historical, and Fark is here and part of it.
You guys are going to get married.
I love him.
Oh my god. I hate you both. Episode 5. Cardassians. Garrick investigates the identity of a Cardassian boy, Rugel, abandoned on Bajor, who has been raised by a Bajoran. Dan, let's see what you think about Cardassians.
Cardassians is a definite see it. This is a fantastic episode. It does what Star Trek does best. It deals with modern issues like racism and bigotry and child custody battles. Then you add to that the whole Gul Dukat being, well, Gul Dukat at his best, playing that chess game that he is so good at. It makes this episode one of my favorite Cardassian-themed episodes in all of Star Trek. It is without a doubt a see it, must see episode. Bill?
You know, I have to say that I really like this story, and Robert Mandan from Soap is fantastic in this as Rugel's biological father. I think the ending is just a little weak, and I honestly think the Bashir character is just a little out of his element in this episode, but I really kind of like the conflict that it presents, both for Bashir and for Sisko too. So ultimately for me, this episode's a see it. It is a great Cardassian themed episode, as you said, Dan. Fark, how about you?
Oh, absolute 100% see it. Because I mean, again, this is a classic Star Trek episode. When like this is one of the kind of ones where I would point someone towards it if they're like, what is Star Trek? You know, what do they talk about on Star Trek? What are the themes of Star Trek? This one is definitely, you know, it's kind of a whole allegory for, you know, what's going on Earth currently in the past and in the past 150 years, really. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. Plus, Cardassians. Come on.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Right? All one word.
Right?
Am I right? A-M-I-R-I-T-E. Am I right?
I love it.
Okay. Moving on to episode 6, Melora. Bashir tries to help Ensign Melora Paslar, the first Alasian to join Starfleet, adjust to normal gravity. Bill, let's go to you.
Well, boys, we've hit a momentous occasion in this theater. Skip it. I present to you the infamous meh, and in this case, I mean meh Laura. This episode is a skip it for me. I am bored by it. I could not care any less about her trying to adjust to gravity or the conflict that it presents. It's not a terrible episode. It's just not one that I think is nearly as engaging as the 5 that came before it in the season. So I feel like it's a bit of a downshift. So yeah, for me, it's a skip it, Dan.
Wow, first skip it of the season. Wow, way to wear that one on your chest real proudly there, sir. I'm giving it a see it, actually. I'm still, I'm going 6 for 6 so far. You know, I will agree with you, Bill. It's not the greatest of episodes, but I actually liked the idea of seeing how different other species can be, even if they look humanoid. The whole way that gravity affects Melora was something that I found kind of interesting and sad at the same time. So I decided to give this one a see it. So we will beg to differ.
Don't need to beg. It's okay.
Oh, Dan, you are definitely going to be in the minority on this one. I give this a 100% absolute skip it. Oh my God. Rewatching this within the past week or so, I was just going, oh yeah, I forgot about this stupid episode. Just because, like, Melora, you know, I wanted to like her, but she was such an unlikable character. I mean, yes, I realize, you know, it's, you know, they're trying to accommodate her and everything, and she's just, you know, super independent and just, like, it's great that they had, you know, a handy, capable character that was, you know, trying to be independent and everything, but do you have to be such a b-hole about it? Like, constantly? No, you absolutely do not. So, yeah, absolutely.
Melora is kind of the Dan Davidson of Starfleet at this point.
An absolute b-hole, yes. Wow. Dan Melora Davidson. I'm making a note on that on my spreadsheet right now. There we go.
Well, and speaking of spreadsheets, Camp Kittimer, Fark, agrees with you and me. A majority, 52%, says they would skip this episode. So, so far, they were really kind of in line with us. One person said, I really dislike this episode. The crew just tries to give Melora a helping hand, and she's very mean when she says no. Skip it. So, way to go, Dan.
Whatever.
Nice pick there. Nice pick, Melora. Okay. Moving on to episode 7, Rules of Acquisition. Quark represents Grand Nagus Zek in a plot to establish a Ferengi business presence in the Gamma Quadrant. Dan, let's hear from you.
Well, hopefully you guys will agree with me on this one, as well as Camp Kittimer, because I gave this one a see it. And the main reason that I give this one a see it is because this is the one that starts it all, even if we don't know it yet. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it right out there like that. Love it. See it.
I have to agree. We're back on the agreement bandwagon, and it's really uncomfortable and tenuous, but I'm gonna enjoy it while it lasts. This is the first seed for the Dominion arc. Really, I mean, they're mentioned here for the very first time. I normally don't enjoy Ferengi episodes, but this one is a definite exception for me. My ears usually bleed when I hear Grand Nagus Zek, even though I love Wallace Shawn, but that laugh just really gets to me. That's the one. I want to pop my own eardrums. Definitely. A definite see it for me. Thanks, Fark.
Yep, I went with a see it on this one too, because I mean, again, it's the first mention of the Dominion, and of course everyone's kind of, you know, blowing it off like, yeah, Dominion, we'll probably never hear about them ever again. Oh, were we wrong? So yeah, and plus you also get Jane from Firefly as one of the species that they were trying to buy all the barrels of wine from.
And if I recall correctly, the big dude is Lieutenant Clag from TNG when Riker was kind of doing that little cross-educational program on the Klingon ship.
That's true.
You're right. Good eye, Davidson. I'm changing your name to Dan Good Eyes Melora Davidson.
Whoa.
You're gonna have like 7 different nicknames by the time this is done, and they're all gonna just completely contradict each other.
7 more.
Yes, 7 more.
That's because the other ones we can't say on the podcast.
Well, okay, we could add in B-hole at least.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, it works for me. All right, moving on to episode 8, Necessary Evil. When Quark is shot, Odo reopens a 5-year-old murder case of Mr. Vatrick, who was a Cardassian collaborator. That son of a... Bill, let's hear from you.
You know, I think the only thing that keeps this episode on the see it list for me is the conflict and tension between Kira and Odo. You know, it's a bit of a whodunit. Odo solves the case, and he doesn't like that he was lied to by one of the people he grew to trust the most over the years. He realizes that she pulled the wool over his eyes, and for years he didn't realize it. So for me, this one's a see it simply for that tension and the fracture in that relationship this early on in the series. Dan?
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, man. And specifically for that reason, I gave it a see it as well, just for that, because that relationship takes a hit here. Even while it's still building, so to speak. But one of the other things that I really liked about this episode were the flashback sequences. I thought they were very well done, and they were woven into the story in a very, very good way. So, yeah, this is one of those ones that if you want to see the whole Kira Odo aspect of the series, this is a definite must-see. So it's a see it.
No, I absolutely agree. Definite see it, just because I loved the fact that it was very Sherlock Holmesy without it being on a holodeck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a definite see it for me, because, you know, they could have easily done something like this on a holodeck, and I would have been, skip it.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, any chance just to see Odo kind of do his thing is always fantastic.
Well, the impressive thing about this episode is that only 18% of respondents in Camp Khitomer said they would skip this episode. So overwhelmingly a see it for Necessary Evil, which I think is pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
Smart people over there on Camp Khitomer. All right, let's move on to episode 9, Second Sight. A mysterious woman, Finna, catches Sisko's eye during their fleeting meetings. That's a tough one to say there at the end. Dan, speaking of tough things to say, Dan.
Wow. Well, okay. Thanks. Okay. I'm gonna give this a see it, but I got a lot of problems with this episode. The biggest of which is the fact that, well, let me go to what I do like first. I like the idea of Sisko being interested in a woman for the first time since the death of his wife, Jennifer. I think that's fantastic. It's nice. It kind of reminds me of Longmire, because I'm watching Longmire now. So, you know, he's got to move on. He's got to, you know, find another love. And this seems to be one that he's interested in, but come on, man. We see this with Geordi and his mother, and we've seen it with other things in TNG. It's not really her. And it's not that hard to see. So I have problems with it in that aspect. However, I will give it a see it because I can live with it. Bill?
You can live with it.
I can live with it.
I like this episode because Sisko's kind of ready to get back out there again, you know, and there's, to me, there's just something so endearing about a scenery chewing Richard Kiley, and his performance as Sayatek is just totally over the top and egomaniacal and all of those things. How there's no captain of this starship, I really don't know, but I don't care because I kind of think this episode's a little fun for me. So for me, believe it or not, Second Sight is a see it, Fark.
Skip it. I'm dissenting with you guys from this one, just because the character of Finna herself annoyed the living crap out of me. But again, like you guys were saying, the Doctor, he was a great Doctor. And like you said, egomaniacal, just very full of himself, and he played that to a T. But the overall story just added 0 to like Deep Space Nine for me at all. So 100%, okay, a 96% skip it for me.
Wow.
Interesting. Well, it was a 59% see it for Camp Kittimer. So I'm actually surprised this one. I'm actually really surprised this episode rates as high as it does, because this is one that people I think either really, really like or just can't stand. So, yeah, 59%. Chew on that, Fark.
I'll chew on it and spit it out right back in their Camp Kittimer faces. Just kidding. I love all of you guys. Episode 10, Sanctuary. The Skria how about this? The Skria, displaced humanoid farmers from the Gamma Quadrant, claim Bajor as Quintana, their legendary homeland. Bill, let's start with you.
This one kind of reminds me a little too much of TNG's Up the Long Ladder. That's the one with the Irish people.
Yeah.
But in a way, this one has an entirely different outcome. I get what they're trying to do here. I just don't think they execute it very well at all. So for me, this one's a skip it. I could live without this episode. Dan?
Up the Long Ladder. Is that the one with the most awesome halter top in history?
Yeah.
It's the one where Riker doesn't know how to wash feet.
Okay, yeah, so it is. And so I got to tell you, I went 9 episodes. I thought I was going to go a lot more before a skip it. I gave this one a skip it as well. A, because there's no halter top like the one in Up the Long Ladder. But B, for me, this is just a boring episode. There was nothing to grab onto for this episode. And if I'm going to recommend episodes to people as to why they should watch Deep Space Nine, this is certainly not going to be one that I pull out of a hat and say, yeah, you got to watch this. So it's my first skip it of the season. Fark?
And I'm going against both of you guys on this one. I gave it a see it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
that's interesting.
Regardless of how kind of close it was to the TNG episode, I mean, I definitely gave it a see it because, I mean, dealt with, immigrants, and that's kind of a big thing right now. And of course, if someone's watching Deep Space Nine for the first time, be like, you're going to recognize a little too familiar of a theme in this right now. So go ahead and definitely give it a watch. So with the exception of the 2 weird goofball sons that came on board, I gave it a see it, guys.
Wow.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Fark, perhaps that's the lens that Camp Kittimer was looking at this episode through, because 59% of respondents said they would in fact see this episode. Interesting fact, one of those 2 idiot sons is actually Walter Koenig's son, who also played Boner on Growing Pains, the late Andrew Koenig. So
Steven Stallone.
Yeah, a little TOS tie-in there.
Nice.
You are a trivia connoisseur, my friend.
I do what I can.
All right. Try to do better.
All right, let's move on to... Yeah, please do. And now...
Sorry.
And now episode 11, which is basically you two on this one. Rivals. Quark feels threatened when a charming swindler, Martus Mazur, opens a competing bar. Dan, let's go to you on this one.
Well, I'm going to be 2 for my last 2 on this one. I gave this one a skip it because if you remember at the beginning of the show, I said every season there is a particular episode that I have no recollection of whatsoever, and this is that episode for season 2. So I can't recommend something that I have no recollection of, so I'm giving that a skip it. William.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, here it is. It's my second one of the season, and I'm going to regale you all with a meh. This one is an absolute skip it for me. The guy from Princess Bride is great. But I Princess Buttercup.
Second Princess Bride reference of the night.
I know, it's fantastic. I can't get into this episode at all. So for me, it's a skip it, Fark.
I gave it a see it. I'm dissenting from the two of you again.
Are you drinking?
Matter of fact, today in Indiana, it's the first time since Prohibition that you can buy alcohol on Sundays. So yes, I had a drink.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Well, that explains a lot.
Mm-hmm. We're catching up. We're catching up with the rest of the country now. But yeah, I gave it a see it just because I liked the whole aspect of Quark having some competition for once and seeing him getting super frustrated with his profits and everything. And I'm not with you guys. I usually enjoy the Ferengi episodes, and a lot of people probably aren't with me on that, but I enjoy them. So yeah, I gave it a see it. I'm a gambling man. What can I say?
Yeah, you are a gambler. Camp Kittimer rolled the dice and came up with this one as a 41% see it, which I think is interesting. Yeah, yes. Only 41. Mm-hmm. That's not doing too well. So
as you wish.
As you wish.
Oh. No. I'll figure out a way to.
That was good, Dan. That was good.
That was. All right, let's move on to 12, episode 12, The Alternate. A scientist, Dr. Maura Pohl of the Bajoran Science Institute, finds a life form in the Gamma Quadrant that may be related to Odo. Bill, to you.
The Alternate. Well, I'm going to say that this is by far one of the best episodes of this season. It's a well-known fact on Trek Geeks that I am a huge James Sloyan fan, and I love everything this guy is in, even when he plays older Alexander in TNG season 7. This episode, though, is one of my favorite performances by James Sloyan, and I love the relationship that we get thrust into between Dr. Maura and Odo and what it means for them down the road. So this one, absolute see it.
Yeah, we have very similar tastes when it comes to Mr. Sloyan. I gave this one a see it as well. It's a fantastic episode. And basically my notes say James Sloyan, and that's pretty much it. Nothing else has to be said about this episode other than the fact that he's in it. He's brilliant. I've always found it very interesting in this episode, however, that Sisko refers to his dad in the past tense. So it's one of those things where I like how they change things around later so that they could bring his dad into it. But this is the first time that we actually heard him talk about his dad, and I liked how it was in the past tense. But James Sloyan is fantastic. That conflict between Odo and Dr. Maura Pohl is fantastic, and we get to see it again later. I just think it's brilliant. Very, very big see it for me.
I only have one thing to say about this episode. It is a see it, but mainly, and I'm going to sum it up like this. And the cat's in the cradle in the silver spoon. Blue and the man in the moon. And I'm not gonna sing it. I'm not gonna sing anymore because I don't need a cease and desist from Cat Stevens. So, and we've seen that happen on this show before. Somewhere I don't remember. But yes,
you're the drummer for 5-Year Mission, right?
Yeah. Yes. And
okay, just checking.
I'm gonna keep it that way. With the exception of
me too.
With the exception of like the EPs where they let me write one song. So
right. Yeah. Right.
So yeah, that's the alternate's definitely a C. Just because
Camp Kittimer agrees with us to the tune of 73% say this is a see it. So
only 73?
A lot of love for the alternate. Yeah, that kind of surprised me. There are no verbatims on this particular episode. Usually there are comments, but this one is just down the middle, see it or skip it. And essentially 3 out of 4 would see it. So there you have it.
Very strange.
That is strange.
Well, on that note, let's move on to episode 13, because obviously not enough people like 12. Episode 13, Armageddon Game. O'Brien and Bashir help 2 warring races, the Kellerans and the Talani, erase all knowledge of a deadly biological weapon, but are not trusted to keep what they have learned a secret. All right, Secret Squirrel Dan, let's hear what you had to say.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so I'm going to give this one a skip it. I am going to, Bill, because we can see our notes from time to time on these shows, and I am going to steal a little bit of your thunder in regards to my thoughts on this, and that has to do with this episode does a great job of cementing the friendship with O'Brien and Bashir for what we will see for the rest of the Deep Space Nine series. For me, though, it wasn't enough for me to give this episode a see it, because honestly, the rest of the episode was a tremendous waste of time, and I just can't stand Keiko. I'm going to go right out there now. I'm sure I'm going to anger a lot of people by saying it. I think that her character is annoying, and whenever she's in scenes, there's only one episode that she's in that I love, and we'll get to that in a future season of the See It or Skip It. But yeah, I got to give this one a skip it. Sorry,
Miles.
That was a little too good, Fark. A little too good. Actually, I think this one's a see it. And like you said, Dan, I think it's primarily for the Bashir-O'Brien relationship. It does position them for the future, but I think this one's especially important in context because it's incredibly uneasy. Bashir even pulls rank on him at one point, and at the end of this episode, you don't necessarily think they're going to remain friends necessarily. The episode is a little bit clunky. I kind of like the fact that, after the harvesters are destroyed, that, well, somebody decides, well, we can't destroy all those. Let's get rid of the people who were destroying them. But I kind of dig this episode in that sense. It's something different for Star Trek, so I said it was a see it. Fark.
Let me jump in, Fark, before you say anything, because Bill, I wanted to bring up something that you just said, which I agree with. It is an uneasy relationship in this episode, and I don't want to jump ahead because I don't want to give away spoilers, but take a look at this episode and then take a look at Hippocratic Oath, where basically the same thing happens. It is done so much better in Hippocratic Oath, I think, than in this episode when I'm comparing the two, which is one of the reasons why I decided to give this one a skip it. That's just my opinion on it.
That's okay. You could be wrong. It's fine.
Okay, Fark, your turn.
I'm going to let you finish, but Hippocratic Oath was so much better. No.
Thank you, Kanye.
Oh my God! But I went with the see it on this one mainly because pretty much any episode with the O'Brien and Bashir bromance going on is a 100% see it for me, just because I love it so much. But yeah, this is like plants the seed of their friendship, and there was that whole uneasy moment when they were down on the planet, and Bashir says something along the lines of like, "Oh, I could never get married. It's like a trap." And Bashir's like, "What'd you say?" I'm sorry, O'Brien's like, "What'd you say? Excuse me?" So yeah, I loved it. I mean, and then plus you got the whole shady government cover up going on, which again, there might be a little bit of collusion there. So yeah, I give this a see it.
I like where your head's at, and so does Camp Kittimer. 2/3 of respondents said that they would, in fact, see this episode. So, 2 out of 3, Dan. So there.
Take that, Melora.
That's not going to get old ever.
Ever. All right, let's go to episode 14, Whispers. So while preparing the station for upcoming peace talks, O'Brien discovers that the crew have been hiding information from him and giving orders behind his back. Bill.
I'm going to surprise a lot of people on this one. I like this episode largely, but I find it mostly boring. I get that O'Brien must suffer. I really do. But there are better episodes for that, and actually better episodes in this season for that. So for me, Whispers is a skip it. Dan.
Well, we shall agree to disagree again. because I gave this one a see it, and I enjoy this episode. And I got to admit that the first time I saw it, the twist at the end of the episode really shocked me, regardless of whether it was right there for everybody to see. It was shocking to me, and I liked the way that they did it. Yeah, O'Brien suffers because that's what O'Brien is supposed to do, but I feel that he does it in such a better way than we ever saw things that happened to Troy in TNG. So I gave this one a see it. Fark?
Well, it's no Night Terrors, but I'll take it. So I gave it what I'm patenting as a see it. Just because I really enjoyed the ending. I liked seeing some of the backstory, but what kind of ruined it for me, again, going back to a Keiko moment, was that dinner between Miles and Keiko. I was just going, can this scene be over yet, please? Please? Because this is getting really old with this poking around at the stew here. So yeah, I gave it a see it.
Interesting. See it. Well, Camp Kittimer, 73% of respondents would see this episode. So I'm in the minority and happy to be that way on this one. I get it. There are other ones I like better. What can I say?
You can't say anything more than see it.
See, or just skip it in my case. So
well, yeah.
So there.
Oh, go have some stew. Episode 15, Paradise. Commander Sisko and Chief O'Brien are stranded on a planet, Aurelius, where their leader, Alexis, rejects technology even when it means the death of others. Dan, let's hear from you on that one.
Well, this was one that I had to rewatch to wrap my brain around the episode again, and I end up giving this a see it. And I say see it because I loathe the character of Alexis so much. Yes. My God, I just want to strangle her every time she's on camera. And you know, I feel like Sisko in that hot box every week when Bill and I sit down and record Trek Geeks, so I definitely know what he's feeling because it's torture. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. Wow.
Bill?
Wow, yeah. A Jackson's reference on a see it or skip it.
Ooh, not even like Jackson.
I didn't mean. Well, it's not a good song, so how can it be a good reference, right?
It's not a good album. I'm going to give this one a see it. This kind of reminds me of a script that could have been a third season TOS episode. You could easily put Kirk and, I don't know, McCoy or Kirk and Scotty in this story, and it still works. Plus, the scene with Sisko going back to the box is worth it alone. Avery Brooks is just lights out in this episode. For me, this is a total see it, Fark.
Yeah, absolute see it, because I was actually going to bring up the whole Sisko going back into the hot box on his, like I say, on his total own volition. Just be like, nope, I'm sticking to my guns here. Y'all are b-holes. Peace out. I'm going back in the box.
But peace in.
Yeah, I love peace in. Shut up, Dan. Yeah. So, I just love that this kind of gave us one of our first big glimpses into how badass of a captain eventually Sisko is going to be. Just because he doesn't take anything, he totally sticks to his guns, and he is just, F y'all, I'm going in the box. And that actually, it says that on my notes, F y'all, I'm going back in the box.
I believe that. Camp Kittimer agrees overwhelmingly. 77% say that this episode is absolutely a see it, and I'm willing to bet that each and every one of those people who voted for this as a see it thought the same exact thing about Sisko, because it's 100% true, man.
Oh yeah.
I said, put the Sisko in the box. Little Con Air reference there.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that.
Sorry, I'm just full of them tonight.
Actually, I was going to go with the whole Alexis and Cool Hand Luke reference. So what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Nice. See that?
Very nice.
I like.
That man over there stole some candles.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Yes. Life is like a box of candles. Don't steal one, otherwise you go in the box.
That's right.
All right, episode 16, Shadow Play. Ugh, I think I did that the other night, and the wife did not like it. Odo and Dax
hey now.
investigate.
Hello.
Odo and Dax investigate why a village's residents are disappearing. Bill, let's hear from you on Shadow Play.
The Shadow Play. I actually, this one for me. this one for me is barely a see it. I could take or leave this episode, honestly, but I really kind of like what this episode does for Odo. I think it tells a great story for him and allows him to loosen up and not be wound so tightly. It allows him to experience a little bit of his own humanity, if you will. So for me, this episode's a see it, Dan.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bud. I gave it a see it, but again, like you, barely a see it. I almost had to give it a skip it simply because there are just too many plot threads in this episode. You know, you've got the planet, and you've got Jake and Cisco, and you've got Kira and Bareil, and then you have Odo and his relationship with the young girl. But I got to say, Odo turning into the top at the end of the episode was just a great touch and really was one that made me turn it into a see it. But I got to say, the whole sentient holographic village thing, okay, but whatever.
Yeah.
Fark.
Yeah, again, my second see-it of the night. I was very undecided with like two of these episodes for this season, so this is one of those see-it, mainly because, you know, I did not really enjoy all the other subplots, but yet again, so being able to see Odo kind of, you know, get a little more in depth with his personality, seeing a more kind of whimsical, kind of nurturing side to Odo was awesome to see. So I gave it the patented see-it.
Patented,
trademarked, and such.
Yes.
So
TM.
Yeah. So as far as playing God goes in Camp Kittimer, sorry, not playing God, Shadow Play. My bad. I skipped ahead on the outline. Interestingly enough, 68% of people who voted said they would see this episode. I'm kind of surprised by that, honestly, because I just
that's high.
Yeah, it's. I think it's high for this episode, but I think it's really interesting that people like it that much. So that is kind of cool to me. That part.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that it was that high for almost a bottle episode.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, totally.
All right, let's go to episode 17, Playing God, the aforementioned Playing God. A proto-universe threatens to destroy the station and Bajor. Dax is a field docent, who's a Trill candidate initiate named Arjun, whom she helps find his voice to discover what he really wants from life and from joining. Dan, let's go to you.
Well, it's hard for me to give a skip it on a Dax episode, but I actually did give this one a skip it. I do like the Dax Cisco parts of the episode, but the whole mini universe aspect and all the technobabble crap that they throw in for this episode just really, really pulled me out of it. And I got to say, I can't put this any plainer than this. I can't stand Arjun in this episode. Drives me crazy for some reason. Yeah. So I gave this one a skip it. Bill? Yes, like Bill. Bill?
Wow. Not a whole lot of motivation for me to go there. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, this one's a skip it for me as well. I mean, there are some good performances in this episode, but I just don't dig the story. I mean, it's okay, and that's about the nicest thing I can say about Playing God. So this one for me is actually a big time skip it.
Yeah, and I was on the fence about this one, but I wound up just barely giving it a see it. I didn't even go with the see it on this one. I gave it a see it just because, you know, we get to say a little more insight into the Dax character and, you know, the whole thing about, you know, having to basically go and, you know, hang out with, you know, like a mentor, a trill mentor, a trill tour, for a little bit until, you know, so they can make sure, this is going to be a good candidate. So I gave it a see it just for that. Just for the backstory aspect.
Well, perhaps that's what the folks in Camp Kittimer were thinking too, because 59% of the voting campers said they would see this episode. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
That's amazing that less people gave this a see it than the previous episode where 60-something did.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah.
That almost seems backwards.
It does.
I've got some ratings coming up in a little bit that will blow your mind, gentlemen. I don't want to play my hand too much, but the back end of this season has some really interesting ratings.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to move on to one that I'm sure, an episode you guys, I'm sure is an absolute 100% see it from both of you. Episode 18, Profit and Loss. Quark is reunited with his former Cardassian lover, Natima Lang, but she's engaged in some dangerous political intrigue with her students, Rakela and Hogue. Bill, let's see how awesome you think this episode was.
This episode is so awesome that it's going to get my final meh of the season. That's right. I hit the hat trick with Profit and Loss. This is an episode I would skip. Although Natima is interesting, and I like the dynamic with Quark. Ultimately, there's just I don't find the dangerous political intrigue very dangerous or very intriguing. So for me, this one is a skip it. Dan.
Well, Quark, I'm gonna Well, Fark, I'm gonna surprise you a little bit. I'm gonna surprise you here, man, because I am giving this a see it. I think that we're finally starting to see some Ferengi stories that work. And maybe this one does because it's a Ferengi / Cardassian story. But I liked it. I like Natima Lang, and I like the whole... We get to see, whether positive or negative, the whole how females are treated in the Cardassian Empire. And that's something that we haven't really seen very much in Deep Space Nine or any Star Trek for that matter. So I didn't love the story, but I didn't dislike it. So I gave it a see it.
Yeah, I absolutely gave it a see it too. Again, I'm a big fan, especially in like early seasons of these series, backstory. And this is one where we got to see like a totally different side of Quark. Normally he's all about profits and everything and the rules of acquisition. That's all he cares about. But then you see him like almost just vulnerable and just like 100% like, no, I will give up this bar. Rom can have this bar. My stupid brother can take over this bar over my dead body, or I can be with you. And so I thought that was a great aspect of this episode, and I gave it an absolute see it on this one.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that that's not going to come as a huge surprise. Although the thing that gets me on this one is that Camp Kittimer was almost split down the middle on Profit and Loss. 55% of people said they would see it, and 45% said skip it. So almost right down the middle on this one.
Very interesting. Well, I think the Ferengi are a very hit and miss alien race series. So I know there's a lot of people that hold kind of grudges towards Ferengi episodes in general. So
what?
Miles?
What about Klingon episodes?
Miles.
Speaking of Klingon episodes, let's go to episode 19, Blood Oath. Jadzia Dax honors an oath made by Curzon Dax to 3 Klingons, Kor, Koloth, and Kang, and goes with them on a crusade against their sworn enemy, the Albino. Dan, let's go to you.
Oh, this is hands down a see it for me. I love this episode. Every time I see it, I just have a smile on my face. It was so awesome to see these 3 original actors reprise their TOS roles, and I was not happy, I will say, that 2 of the 3 died in this one episode, but it was a good story, and it sets up many more visits from Kor. And this particular episode probably was his strongest of all of them on DS9, and I'm not even going to include TOS because that that appearance was just off the charts. But I love this episode. I love how this year. Actually, no, I can't say anything because I don't want to give any spoilers for Discovery because we don't do that here on Trek Geeks. So I will now go to Bill.
Well, thank you, Dan. This one for me is also a huge see it. I mean, it's just nice to see Kang, Koloth, and Kor one more time. And regardless of how they look and how it's not explained, I don't care. It's a great story. It's got great action. It's got great heart. And I love the way that they work Dax into this episode too. So for me, this episode, absolutely a see it. Fark.
I 100% see it. Absolutely. When I was a guest over on Trek Ranks for the top 5 Klingon episodes of the entirety of Star Trek, this was in my top 5. So yeah, nice. 100%, 100 absolute percent see it. And and Dan, well, I know where you were going with on the possible spoilers with Discovery. So yeah, just so you know,
Appreciate that.
We come close to 100% with Camp Khitomer. 91% of the people who voted in the poll on Camp Khitomer said they would see Blood Oath. And believe it or not, it is not the highest rated episode of the season in Camp Khitomer. That is still to come.
Whoa!
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, then let's get to it.
Oh, okay. Episode 20, The Maquis, Part 1. Federation colonists reject a treaty with Cardassia and take matters into their own hands, forming a terrorist group called the Maquis. Bill, let's do it.
Let's do it indeed. I love this episode. It's a see it. It's great to see Bernie Casey in Star Trek. It's one of the last people I ever expected to see in a Starfleet uniform, but it brings a smile to my face. I think this is a great story. And forget the fact that it seems like this just serves to set up Chakotay and Voyager to some extent. I think that this one presents Cisco with, Farkuchi Moya. I think this one sets up a great conflict for Cisco. He's really got a lot to think about. You know, Hudson gives him more than just a horrible reason like Ro uses to join the Maquis. So this one for me, definite see it, Dan.
Yeah, this is a see it for me. This is a must see for anybody who wants to learn about what the Maquis are all about. It gives a great look into what quote unquote rebels are all about. And for me, like I talked about earlier, when O'Brien, the way that the O'Brien episode ended with that twist, it was really shocking for me to see Hudson as the leader of the group in that jungle at the end of part 1. His betrayal is not as overpowering as Eddington's, which we'll get into some other time, but it was still strong with the Cisco. So I definitely gave this a see it.
Yeah, 100% see it on this one, too, because, it sets up the Maquis super duper well. And, of course, the twist ending to part 1. And then also we get to see Bill and Ted's history teacher as the leader of a rebel group. So 100% see it.
It might surprise you gents to know that this is the second episode in a row for Camp Khitomer that is at 91% see it. The Maquis part 1, like Blood Oath before it, 91%. So lots of love for this back half of the season in Camp Khitomer, I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Maquis, let's go to the Maquis part 2, episode 21. The Maquis plan to destroy a weapons depot at the Cardassia Barima colony. Dan, let's hear from you on part 2.
Well, part 2's got to go with part 1, so I'm going to give this one a see it as well. I don't want to give spoilers again, but I'm going to word this in a way that hopefully won't give anything away for future seasons of Deep Space Nine here. Allowing Hudson to escape for Cisco perhaps was one of the first of several things that we see him do that really surprises me over the course of the series. I'm going to bring up Eddington again because I did for part 1, and I just got to ask, if Eddington was as close a friend as Hudson was, would Cisco have ever let him go? We'll get into that when we get into that particular episode in a future see it or skip it, but I want people to think about that until then. And I got to say, I just love Gul Dukat in this episode. I love him in every episode, but this one, he is the snake political he's so slimy in this, and I just love that about him. So I gave this a definite see it.
I have to agree. In fact, everything you said is actually everything I was thinking. I really think that it's important that Benjamin lets Hudson escape. Because like you said, with the Eddington thing down the road, I don't think there's a way he can let Eddington escape. And we'll get to that in that season. But it tells us a lot about Sisko and the relationships that he values. I mean, we know some of that coming into this episode, but he puts his friendship before necessarily the Starfleet Delta on his uniform. So for me, this episode's an absolute see it.
Yeah, it's also a definite see it from me. Of course, it wraps up, the Maquis arc in this first season and everything. And of course, it's a little more insight into Sisko and, his values, basically. So that is another reason why Deep Space Nine is one of my favorite series, just because Sisko is such a complicated captain. He's not a one-note captain. Mm-hmm. He's not super predictable all the time, and he always surprises you. So a definite see it for Maquis Part 2.
So speaking of definite see it, I mentioned to gents mere moments ago that the previous 2 episodes were at 91% with Camp Khitomer. We're going to have a second hat trick, and this time the Maquis Part 2 is also a 91% see it. That's 3 episodes in a row where campers have loved these episodes. So this is pretty fantastic.
It is interesting that they're all 91% too.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, they're 3 solid episodes in a row. So it's great to see that love. I always thought that most people didn't like the Maquis 2-parter. I guess I was wrong.
Well, no, I think you're thinking of the Maquis Voyager style. So that's when I stopped liking Maquis. I'm going to get so much hate mail.
You and us both.
So before I get more hate mail, let's move on to episode 22, The Wire. I loved the series on HBO. So, oh no, wait a second. The Wire is the name of the episode. In order to save Garak's life, Bashir must unravel some of the secrets in the Cardassians' past. Bill, let's go to you.
I have to say that I was more of a fan of The Shield than The Wire, but that's a different podcast for another time. No way. Vic Mackey's the man. This episode for me is a see it. I think that Andrew Robinson is just amazing in this episode. We know it's one of his personal favorites. And I think it tells a great story, not only about Garak, but also about Garak's relationship with Tane. And I think that Bashir plays the perfect balance in this episode. So I think there's a lot to love in The Wire. It's one that I will watch and then usually rewatch again after I've watched it. That's how much I enjoyed this episode. Dan?
Yeah. For me, I think this is probably the best episode of season 2. It is a 100% see it for me. It's an amazing Garak Bashir story. And like Bill said, our friend Andrew J. Robinson is just nothing short of amazing in this episode. I wish that we had more episodes with Garak, but I'll tell you, the episodes that he's in, he steals the show. He's just fantastic. Love the guy. So it is. I am quite certain, Fark, that you gave it a see it as well, or at least you better have, buddy.
Oh yeah, this was one of my favorite episodes of season 2 by far. Not just because we get to see who Bashir is as a person and how he is so committed as to being a doctor to his patients, but again, this is a very Star Trek episode. I mean, it deals with modern day problems. It was an implant in his brain, but this has to deal with a lot with addiction. And obviously, Garak, to deal with day-to-day life on there, he basically turned to drugs. And it was being produced in his brain, and then he basically had to kick the junk. So I absolutely 100% loved this episode and would recommend this to anybody that would say, why do you love Deep Space Nine so much? This is one of those episodes.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's my turn. Sorry.
Hey,
I was reading verbatims for the next episode. I think it's fascinating. But The Wire, also quite popular in Camp Khitomer. It's not a 91%er, but it's pretty darn high. It's 86% would see The Wire. Yeah, that's
nice.
A lot of love. Yeah, I'm loving this. I love the trend we're seeing here. Although I wonder if it makes me wonder where it goes next.
Well, this might be a good segue then, because episode 23 is crossover. Kira and Bashir accidentally cross into the mirror universe where a Klingon-Cardassian alliance rules. Dan, mirror universe, go.
Do you have to ask?
I know.
Yeah. Everybody knows I love the mirror universe. This is definitely a see it. This is actually the first time that we have seen the mirror universe since Mirror Mirror. And I think that they reintroduced the Terrans and the mirror universe brilliantly in this episode. There are other episodes later on in Deep Space Nine with the mirror universe that, although I love the mirror universe, aren't my favorite, especially the way that they handled the Intendant Kira character. But for this time, with the first time back in the mirror universe, it is just awesome. I loved it. See it. Bill.
This one for me is also a see it, and I think it was because I was surprised initially, 25 years ago or 24 years ago when we got a Mirror Universe episode, because Mirror Mirror is just so revered. I do like some of the things that they introduced here. I think Nana Visitor just totally slays everything in this episode, both as Kira and as the Intendant. I like the juxtapositions of the characters. Although, in the timeline, we don't know it yet, but it's the first of a long line of Mirror Universe episodes. Definite see it for me.
Oh, I absolutely agree with both of you. I mean, I obviously am a huge Mirror Universe fan. If you guys don't know about the giant Terran Empire tattoo on my forearm. So yeah. Love the Mirror Universe.
Yep.
And basically this episode was just absolutely fantastic, how they handled it. And then what was great about it is the two Kiras meeting up almost first thing. And I thought that was brilliantly done. And plus, Intendant Kira is not a bad thing to look at in that outfit either. So,
true that.
The interesting thing from the Camp Kittimer perspective, 75% of people, 75% of people said they would see this episode. But there were two verbatims that I thought were very interesting because they're very opposed to one another. On the see it side, there is definitely see this. This is the first mirror episode of Deep Space Nine. And then on the skip it end, because there are some skip its, the verbatim is this: the episode that ruined the mirror universe by removing the moral inversion. It's okay to help the Terrans now that they're being oppressed. A waste of a great concept. Skip it. I'm fascinated by that reply.
Wow.
That does make you think, doesn't it?
And also kind of fight them.
Yeah. That's okay. We'll set that up.
Okay.
We'll put that on YouTube. Geek fights.
Yeah. Well, I like it. I like it already.
Yeah, I didn't think about it from that perspective, and now I'm going to have to go back and watch it again. Although I still think this episode is going to be a see it for me ultimately.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the cool things about this, and it's really sad that it happened, is Mirror Odo dies in this episode. So we don't get to see him in future ones, but to see him explode the way he did was just awesome.
Yes, it was. I was 100% not expecting that. Just pudding everywhere.
Pudding. Oh, God. That's just wrong.
Oh, speaking of wrong, let's go to episode 24, The Collaborator. A Bajoran secretary named Kubus, who aided the Cardassian occupation forces, wants to return home from exile. Vedic Wynn engages in a power play to become Kai against Vedic Barile. Bill, let's go and start with you.
I'm going to say this one is a see it, but really the only reason I think it's a see it is because this is the one that makes Wynn the Kai, and that's huge for the rest of the series. The story's a little complex, and at times it becomes a little tough to follow, but the whole Wynn payoff at the end and Kira's reaction is, I think, worth it, just for that alone. So for me, this one's a see it.
Yeah, this is a see it for me, and I got to say, Gul Dukat is my favorite villain, I think, in Star Trek history, but I don't know if there's anybody that people hate more than Kai Wynn in this series. And I got to tell you, Louise Fletcher is just amazing in this role. She's an Oscar winner. And I think the fact that they were able to land her to be this character for several seasons of Deep Space Nine shows how legitimate this series is going to be, as we're only in season 2 right now. It's just brilliant. She is such a slimy politician and pretends to be always having Bajor on her mind, but it's all about her. And Louise just does it so great. So it is a see it for me. She's so damn awfully good.
Yeah, I'm definitely giving it a see it as well. Again, Kai Wynn. Oh my God. Like, everyone's like, do I hate the character or do I actually hate the person playing the character? Because because she plays a smarmy beehole so well that you're like when I saw her in Vegas, like 2-3 years ago, I can't remember what it was. Like, I didn't know whether to go up and shake her hand or punch her in the face. Like, it was that deep.
So what'd you do?
She played it so well. I shook her hand and said, I loved you as Kai Wynn, but I also hated you as Kai Wynn. And she goes, that's what I was going for.
Nice.
So yeah, an absolute see it, but also, are all the Vedics that passive-aggressive towards each other? Because, wow.
Yeah, right? That's one of the things that always struck me about them, except for, well, Kai seems to be a little more, well, as you say, hashtag smarmy beehole, than the rest of them. I think, yeah, we've got a new hashtag for this week, thanks to Fark. But yeah, Camp Kittimer came down to this one as a 73% see it. Only 27% of the respondents said they would skip this episode. And I'm guessing it's because of the long, complex story, when really it's the last 10 minutes that are, where the last 10 minutes is where the payoff is, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely could have done with all the weird orb hallucinations from Barial on this one.
Yeah, same here.
All right, well, I'm going to go into my own orb trance and move on to episode 25, Tribunal. O'Brien is declared guilty of an unspecified crime and later tried at a tribunal held on Cardassius Prime. We'll start with Dan.
Well, this is a great one. This is a see it for me. You know, I guess I can word it this way. If Cisco is the emissary, then O'Brien is certainly the sufferer, because he suffers. We've seen him suffer, and we're going to see him suffer some more. And my teeth hurt every time I watch this episode. So, O'Brien, I'm going to give you a see it. Brilliantly performed by Colm Meaney, and I love this episode. Bill?
You know, I said earlier in the episode that there are better ways that O'Brien suffers. This is how O'Brien suffers. This episode is an absolute see it. You get to see the Cardassian, judicial system. You get to see Odo play a pivotal role because he still is standing in the Cardassian Empire, which is fascinating. You get to see the underpinnings of that Cardassian society and how they attach a horrible lawyer to O'Brien because it's presumed that he's just going to be guilty. And more importantly, you get more Keiko, which I know was something Dan loves entirely. So a definite see it for me, Mr. Fark.
Miles.
You almost sound like one of those Rankin Bass characters from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I could see a whole like claymation Keiko happening eventually. Yeah, I gave this an absolute. She possibly could be. Just, I mean, we haven't seen a high def version of Deep Space Nine yet, so we don't know yet. I definitely gave this a see it just because Colm Meaney is absolutely fantastic in this episode. I mean, just when he starts just shouting his name, rank, and everything, and just like that was his answer for everything. It was like, this is an absolute military man, and he is sticking to his guns, stubborn as all hell, and he is going to somehow beat this. And of course, we get Odo as his de facto lawyer eventually. The Nestor, I believe, was his title in this. But yeah, I thought it was a great episode. What did Camp Kittimer think?
Camp Kittimer, You might be surprised to find out, thought this was a 68% see it.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, low from my perspective. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm really kind of stunned by that. There are no verbatims on this episode. It's literally just down the line, see it or skip it. And most people said they would see it, but it's really only like a just over a 2/3 margin.
Yeah, I want to
That's
hear
sad.
why some people would have skipped this. I want explanations.
You demand answers. You demand the truth.
Oh, and I can handle the truth. Trust me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks here, gentlemen. Final episode of the season, episode 26, The Jem'Hadar. Cisco, Jake, Nog, and Quark go on a camping trip on a Gamma Quadrant world, but are captured by mysterious soldiers called the Jem'Hadar, and meet a new enemy called the Dominion. Let's go to Bill for this final episode.
I think that this is a fantastic way to end the season for Deep Space Nine. It's not truly a cliffhanger, but it leaves things so uncertain at the end that you have no idea what's going to come next. Plus, you get the introduction of the Jem'Hadar. That makes this must-see Deep Space Nine. I remember watching this live when it happened, and I was stunned at the destruction of a Galaxy-class starship. Like, literally, I had goosebumps.
Yeah.
I had chills. I'm like, that's how fierce the Jem'Hadar are, and they mean business. So this is an absolute, unquestionable see it, Dan.
Yeah, I'm a little speechless right now thinking about that particular scene. This is obviously a see it for me. This is the real beginning of the Dominion arc. It's one of my favorite episodes in Deep Space Nine history. And I got to tell you, Bill, the first time that I saw this and that suicide run on the Galaxy class starship happened, I literally could not believe what I was seeing. I'm like, did that just happen? What is this like some kind of like holographic simulation? It just blew my mind. And I'm like, wow, these rhinoceros looking dudes are going to be a problem. I loved the introduction of the Vorta, even though she was different than what we'll see later on, but I just thought it was great. You got to see the relationship between Cisco and Jake a little bit more. Plus, you got to see how big a pain in the ass Quark could really be, and he always complains, but it worked in the story brilliantly. This is one of the best. Definite see it. Fark?
Yeah, I definitely did not need any ointment for this episode because this is a definite see it for me. Because, I mean, of course, the introduction of the Jem'Hadar, one of the most badass groups of soldiers you will ever come across outside of outside of the Borg, basically. And it was fantastic. You get a bunch more backstory between the whole Jake and Cisco relationship, and get to hear Jake talk about Mom, but in kind of a happy way. And so I thought this was a great ending to the season. And it's a great cliffhanger.
Well, speaking of a great end to the season, I can tell you that for the first time in Deep Space Nine, we have hit a 100% see it from Camp Kittimer. The Jem'Hadar, every respondent said they would see this episode. So,
oh my God, that makes me so happy. Oh,
the consensus all around, not only here on the dais, but also with our friends in Camp Kittimer. So that's a fantastic end of the season. Let's run through some numbers. Dan, I assume you have your percentage handy.
I do. Out of the 26 episodes, I came in with 22 as see it for an 84.62% see it rating for season 2. Bill,
I think that could be one of your highest ratings yet.
I think so.
Fark actually outdid you. Fark, you had 24 out of 26 as see it. And that's for a grand total of 92.31%. I think that's the highest rating we've ever had for a season of Star Trek.
Now, I will say, guys, I'll jump in real quick. I gave your see-its in the rankings, Fark. If I gave them skip-its, you would have dropped down to, let's see what we have here, an 88.46%. No, actually, it's a little bit lower than that. It is an 84.62. You would have been tied with me. So it's still pretty high, but we'll give you the higher one, the 90+. That's pretty good.
I beat you, David.
And I come in. You beat both of us because I come in at a very anemic 20 out of 26 by comparison for 76.92%. So I'm sorry to have let all of fandom down. Although I'm not sorry I let Dan down because look at his face. He's got it coming.
You're not a
look
fan.
at it.
No, don't look at it. You'll go blind.
Your face is a fan.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Wow, the first your face of the episode isn't even from one of us. That's awesome. Fark, thank you so much for joining us for this See It or Skip It. It was so much fun to have you here. You said that year 4 is coming soon. Tell us where we can find Ye Old 5-Year Mission online.
There's a 5yearmission.net, not that .com, but .net. Then you can also follow us on Twitter at 5-year mission. And you can also find us on Facebook at Facebook/5-year mission. And I believe the same exact thing over on Instagram as well, even though we're not on there as often.
Fantastical. And of course, we can't thank you guys enough. You're a big part of our show every single week, and we're incredibly grateful to all of you. And by all of you, we mean you, because
Yeah.
you actually listen to podcasts. But it's an integral part of our show. We want everyone to head on out to 5yearmission.net. Go get all those albums, yo. Get ready for year 4 because it's dropping soon, and you're going to love it. We guarantee it. Isn't that right, Daniel?
It is absolutely right. I can't wait till April 27th. And, like Bill just said, Fark, we can't thank you enough for coming on. You've been on before. We always have such a great time. And I got to say, honestly, it's almost like being with royalty here, having you join us on this episode, or possibly even like standing alongside a deity or a godlike figure, because you mean that much to us. Now, where do you come from? Where does this drummer come from? People probably ask, because he is so omnipotent. Several races call where you come from a different name. Humans may call it heaven or maybe Eden. The Klingons call it Kuitu. The Romulans actually call it Vortavor. But I know for a fact that the throngs of fans of 5-Year Mission have a very different name for it, my friend, and it is Farkari. And I thank you for being part of our lives.
Oh, you get the hell out of my life right now.
Yeah, and mine.
I got to do one live with you, man. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
I know. You couldn't pass that one up. I mean, obviously, you got to get my initial reaction for one of them. And wow, you really hit it behind home plate on that one.
Well, look at the bright side. He could have called you Farklar.
Oh, didn't he already do that one though?
I did. Yes.
See, I've lost count.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, Fark is licking his wounds. Dan, we're going to put our celebration of the 25th anniversary of Deep Space Nine on hold for next week, but for a damn good reason.
For a very damn good reason. Yes, sir, Bill. We actually talked about this reason in this here episode of See It or Skip It. We talked about James Floyan. Well, he's awesome in every Star Trek appearance he's done, and none may be better than when he was, get this, Fark, when he was on Voyager as the creator of a doomsday weapon that killed Neelix's family during the Talaxian War with the Hakonians. So next week, we're going to deep dive into Jetrel on an all-new episode of Trek Geeks, your independent Star Trek podcast.
Wow, Fark's favorite Star Trek series. Next week.
Couldn't they have just killed off Neelix's entire family and just so then there would be no Neelix? Just cut down the family tree and burn the roots, dynamite it, something, just so we don't have to get. You want some soup? Let me touch you, tiny lady.
Leola root soup, right? I'm on top of that. And of course, Fark has no strong feelings on the matter whatsoever. Of course, for more great Star Trek discussion, we want everyone to check out the Tricorder Transmissions online at thetricordertransmissions.com. Dan, they have another new podcast coming out. Did you know this?
Say what?
Yeah. Tricorder, they're just cranking out content like you wouldn't believe. And of course, we love all of those folks over there. We want you to check them out. There's going to be some great Star Trek discussion. No matter which Trek is your favorite, they've got it covered, I guarantee you. And of course, for all the news on all the Star Treks, please visit our wonderful friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode 131 of the Trek Geeks podcast. We do hope you all live long and prosper.
Coconut.
Coconut.
There you go.
See, now, the worst part is I have to try
voice, and I hate his face.
I'm going to have to try to sync up both of those with the end theme. I hate you both.
I did that on purpose because I knew that's what you were going to say.
Bing bong.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, Fark.
Hi.
We figured we'd at least make you part of the outtake this week, too.
Well, I wasn't quite sure. I heard the bing bong, and normally it's just you two yahoos blathering back and forth, so I was waiting.
We figured we'd bring in the third Yahoo, and it would be like a Tre de Yahoo.
Yahoo serious.
Oh, excellent reference.
Very nice
reference. That's a great reference. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to do DS9 season 2. You've no idea. And Fark, I'm excited to have you back. Even though the last time you were on the outtake also, if I might add.
I was? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was you and Rittenhouse, and we were talking about the Spock van.
Oh, that's right.
You are undeniably outtake material all the time, 24/7.
That's what the wife tells me.
Hey.
I wish that I planned a sort of Farkism, Danism, battle royale sort of steel cage match. That would have been fantastic.
You can't plan those.
I should have prepared a few just so I can go back and forth.
No,
it'd be like 8 Mile.
Just freestyle some. So yeah, I was doing my rewatch of Voyager the other night. Wait a second, that's a lie. I don't watch Voyager.
Does anybody?
Oh, they definitely do because I get yelled at constantly online.
Bill, don't be a prude.
So which would you rather watch first, the animated series or Voyager?
Animated series.
Wow.
I said that so fast.
You did. There was like no hesitation whatsoever.
Zero pause. I didn't have to put any thought into it.
That's just like us pretty much every episode.
Farkuche Moya.
We have traveled far from the lands of our fellow drummers. Farkuche Moya.
Farkuche Moya.
I need a shirt that says Farkuche Moya now.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
no, I really do.
Yeah. And the picture of you and Fark at Vegas when you're like looking dawlingly into his eyes.
No. It's got to be just the Farkuche Moya. Maybe with a silhouette of Fark. I would put that in the Trek Geek store just to buy it myself.
Didn't one of you guys do a Photoshop of me as him at one point?
Yes.
I swear.
Yes.
I made a one of you with the Chakotay tattoo, and indeed.
That's right. That's what it should be then.
I like that.
That should
I
be
like
the t-shirt. T-shirt, bumper sticker, keychain, oven mitts.
Thong.
Beefcake calendar.
We're not doing a Voyager Beefcake calendar.
All right, so let's talk about this Beefcake calendar. When's this happening? Because I gotta get my hands on it.
Wait, what do you have to get your hands on for the beefcake calendar?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's going to be a 2019 calendar, so you're going to have to wait. You just have to prime yourself.
Will it be like an 18-month calendar, or are you going to do the standard 12-month?
We'll probably do the 12, maybe a 13, just for those lazy people that don't go out and buy a calendar until February.
That is a fantastic idea.
I just now thought of that too. Actually, I'm going to suggest that to the rest of the guys.
Are you guys going to do like a group photo for beefcake, sort of make it like the 13th month, and it'll be sort of like oh God, what's the movie with the unemployed British guys who start stripping?
The Full Monty.
Magic Mike.
Yes, the Full Monty. Thank you.
Magic Mike. They play one. I'm putting that one in the queue.
You seem to recall that just a little too easily too.
I was trying.
No, I had to think about the Full Monty at least.
All I can see now is that scene in the unemployment office where Hot Stuff is playing over the Muzak, and they immediately they start sort of mini doing their dancing routine in their heads while they're waiting for the unemployment line. And now I can see Fark doing that in my head, and I need brain bleach.
brain bleach or lotion? Which one? Or both?
No comment.
Or both?
See, you got one on me there, Bill, because I have not seen the Full Monty.
What?
I've never seen it.
You obviously have not gotten Bill drunk enough then.
That's after last year in Vegas. I assure you, I was hammered quite enough one night.
Yep. Remember that, Fark? Oh wait, no, sorry, you don't remember that.
You son of a bitch.
Wow.
It still hurts. Still hurts.
It hurts us?
No, it hurts you. I was mourning along with Fark. Apparently, you take delight in that fact. What are you, a Gary Graham fan?
No, whoa. I'm very upset. And I'm very upset this year.
He will never be on this podcast now. Not that he was going to anyway.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Oh my! All right, boys, are you ready to do some damage here to season 2?
Very slight damage, actually, from my end.
I'm damaged.
I know you are.
Say that again.
Wow. All right, let me pull up the spreadsheet and then we'll make this happen.
Pull it out, Bill.
Well, that took a turn. I wasn't quite ready for that. I'm sorry.
You don't even have to say that. He podcasts without pants on.
Don't judge.
No judgment.
Judgery looks so poor on you, Dan.
Indeed.
All right, here we go.
You wear it well.
I'm waiting for Fark just to instantaneously break out into song intermittently. All right.